Daniel Moretti, a 36-year-old architect, tired of the hectic life in Miami and emotionally shattered after a traumatic divorce and the recent death of his father, decides to start over. He buys an old, isolated colonial house in the Colorado countryside, perched atop a hill, surrounded by dense forest and forgotten dirt roads. The listing promised tranquility, history, and the chance to rebuild, not just the house, but his own life. In the first few days, the peace feels real. The sound of crickets at night, the absolute silence during the day, and the rustic beauty of the house give him a false sense of comfort. But soon, Daniel begins to notice strange things. Constant creaking, even when there's no wind, objects shifting places, doors opening on their own. And always at night, at 3:03 a.m., he wakes up paralyzed, hearing slow footsteps in the hallway, footsteps that stop right outside his bedroom door. Trying to rationalize, he attributes everything to the wear and tear of the old house. But when he discovers a diary from 1912, hidden in the attic, written by a woman named Mariana, his unease turns into terror. In its pages, Mariana describes her lonely life in the house with her husband, a doctor who gradually becomes strange, obsessed with something she calls the roots of the earth. She begins to recount disturbing visions, shadowy figures at night, and whispers coming from the forest. As Daniel reads further, he notices alarming parallels between Mariana's experiences and his own. The house seems to repeat patterns. He dreams of Mariana standing at the foot of his bed, her long hair wet, eyes black as coal, whispering, "You came back, now you can't leave." From that moment on, the presence in the house intensifies. The refrigerator door opens on its own. Reflections in the mirror show rooms that don't exist. The radio plays static every night at 3:03 a.m., with voices whispering incomprehensible words. Daniel begins to suspect that something in the house is alive and hungry. He tries to sell the house, but no one shows any interest. Friends who promise to visit suddenly cancel, always citing illnesses, accidents, or a bad feeling. The house isolates him. Phones stop working. The internet signal drops permanently. The hill where he lives becomes a world apart, a territory where time distorts and reality unravels. Each night turns into a more vivid nightmare than the last. Daniel begins to find symbols scratched into the walls with charcoal. He hears children laughing in the basement. One of them calls his name. While exploring the grounds, he finds a twisted, deformed tree contorted like a body in agony that seems to be watching him. It is visible from the kitchen window, and day by day, it seems to be getting closer to the house. Seeking answers, Daniel investigates the property's history and discovers that it once belonged to a lineage of residents who mysteriously disappeared or died violently. One hanged himself in the attic. A couple was found without eyes, the word inhospitable carved into their skin. A child, the same one mentioned in the diary, disappeared after drawing dozens of faceless human figures on the walls. The house has a pattern. It attracts the lonely, emotionally shattered people and transforms them into part of itself. It is not just a shelter, it is an organism, ancient, cyclical, and conscious. Daniel discovers the existence of a forgotten cult called the Silencers, active in the region during the 19th century. This cult performed summoning rituals at the exact location where the house was built, around the twisted tree, which they called the pillar between worlds. The rituals sought to open portals between the physical world and something they referred to as the uninhabitable deep, a dimension of voices, echoes, and hunger. The more Daniel investigates, the more disturbing reality becomes. He finds old newspapers reporting disappearances. A local priest in the 1960s reportedly tried to exorcise the house and ended up vanishing. The last recorded resident in 1987 disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a scribbled note on the living room wall. The house swallowed me. Daniel decides to escape. He packs everything. But on the road, his car suddenly breaks down for no apparent reason. As he asks for help and walks to a distant gas station, he realizes that he is once again facing the hill, as if he had never left. The road has changed, or the house followed him. Time begins to fail. Days blur together. Sometimes he wakes up in different rooms. Other times, he finds notes written in his own hand with phrases like, "Don't look out the window," or "She's in the mirror." One midnight, he watches a recording of himself sleeping and with horror sees his figure rise, descend the stairs, and whisper in an unknown language in front of the mirror. The climax comes when Daniel tries to set the house on fire. He spreads gasoline, lights the match, and watches everything burn. But by morning, everything is as it was before, untouched, except for something new in the yard, a gravestone with his name engraved on it. The birth date is correct. The death date is blank. Madness wraps around him like fog. He begins to see Mariana during the day, standing in the hallway. He hears voices murmuring in the walls and the muffled laughter of something crawling between the floorboards. The basement now has endless stairs. At night, he feels the house breathing. He finally discovers that his grandfather was born in the region, that he himself unknowingly is a direct descendant of the founders of the cult, that Mariana was his great-grandmother, and the house had been waiting for him since before his birth. The blood that runs through it runs through him, who... In his final recording, Daniel leaves a warning. This house is not made of wood or stone. It is made of time, of pain, of voices that never left. And it remembers. It remembers every face, every scream. If you've entered it, it's already in you. You can leave, but it will take something with you. Daniel disappears. The house endures, for sale again, silent, waiting for the next.